Alrighty, it's almost game time, and I have a Red Sox podcaster here, and we can only be friends for the next 12 hours. After that, we're going to be enemies because we're going to try to beat your team to and try to go on to the World Series. I'm so sorry about that, Lauren, but we're going to talk about this series, the Astros versus Red Sox. It's be epic matchup, and we'll talk about this and more on this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can they find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter and at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, always Stros.
We have a friend for now, a guest, one of our co-host over at the Locked On Red Sox Nation. So, Lauren, where can they find you at, and where can they listen to your podcast?
You can find me on Twitter at Lauren, 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's, and the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and that Twitter is LO_Red Sox.
All right, we'll have to ask you about that little Twitter handle in a little bit. But guys, make sure you make the Locked On Astros podcast and the Locked On Red Sox podcast your first listen every day, especially during the ALCS. This is probably going to be an epic matchup. And whether I'm not sure if you're on YouTube yet, but make sure you subscribe to Locked On Astros on YouTube, and make sure you listen to both of the audio versions on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you listen to Locked On Astros and maybe the Locked On Red Sox podcast as well. So let's go ahead and talk about this. And you know where the best place to talk about this would be? Spotify Green Room. And this episode is brought to you by Spotify Green Room. Download the app and join us this week. We'll probably maybe do a short one before the game time tomorrow and join the conversation to get in. So Brett, are you excited about this? It's almost game time. I know Cora is still texting all his old Astros buddies like Carlos Correa, and he said that after the 12 hours, it's business time, and that's what the whole little exchange earlier was about. But are you excited?
Man, I am pumped, and I'm so excited that I just told my son tonight. I surprised him. I'm pulling him out of school early tomorrow. We've got to go because he doesn't have an orange jersey. He only has a blue one, so we got to go get him either an orange jersey or an orange shirt because the whole stadium is going to be just covered with orange. And I'm getting him out of school early. We're going to go enjoy the pregame festivities. We're going to go. There's some local businesses having like a grand opening down there. We're going to take part in that, and just excited to see this red hot Red Sox team. You don't want to come into a playoff series and someone limp in. I mean, you want the best of the best, and of course, I wouldn't say you want it easy. You want it competitive, and I think the Astros have hit a real snag in the whole Lance McCullers thing. I honestly doubt, Eric, that we're going to see him at all in the ALCS. I do not think that they have plans for him right now in the rotation. Nothing's been made official, but all indications point to him not even being in the rotation, and I hope that he's okay. So with that being said, it changes storylines, it changes pitching matchups. And Lauren, are you excited? The Red Sox last year were just they fell off the face of the earth. Their manager had been suspended, I guess let go, technically suspended, and then boom, he comes back and they lit the world on fire. They cooled off, and I was like, wait, y'all let the Yankees in? Like, we were hoping that y'all would keep the Yankees out. Then you beat them easily, and now you're here. So how are you feeling about this series?
I'm really excited. I think that it adds a little more to this little rivalry the Red Sox and Astros have built over the last few years. Obviously, 2018 in the ALCS, 2017, and just continuing to see what the Red Sox can do, because the Red Sox were not good against the Astros this year, and they were really bad. And to see them not handily beat the Rays by any means, but to just come back and win 3 in a row against them after beating the Yankees, this is a lot of momentum that they're riding, and it's going to be a very fun, competitive series that I cannot wait to watch.
I just love how it goes from Alex Cora saying, well, Chris Sale will pitch in the series to being the game one starter. How did this happen? I thought that Gabriella was on the show yesterday, and she said that he was struggling. How did this decision get made?
So it brings me back to 2018 in Game 5 of the World Series when everyone thought Chris Sale was going to start the game, and Alex Cora ended his press conference by being like, "Oh, by the way, David Price is starting," and then tries to run off. And he's like, "Well, no one asked who was going to be the starter." So it kind of makes me think of that when everyone assumed it was going to be Eovaldi. I don't think anybody really thought it would be Sale just because of how he pitched against the Rays and kind of how he ended the regular season. But listen, no one knows this team better than Alex Cora. Chris Sale probably went to his office and was like, I want this ball. I figured out my mechanics. I found something in the bullpen. I can do this. And what better time to give a ball to an angry, motivated, ready to bounce back Chris Sale than game one, a very crucial game one. And if, the Red Sox need 4 or 5 quality innings from him, I don't think they're going to get 1 inning. I don't think that's a Chris Sale of the past. That was just a very bumpy Chris Sale. But I mean, Alex Cora loves throwing these curveballs to the reporters, to the fans, and just kind of keeping the Astros on their toes too, because I'm sure that Alex Cora wants to give as little bulletin board material as possible. And if they're preparing for Nate Eovaldi and all of a sudden it's lefty Chris Sale, that's going to be like, okay, now we got to adjust the lineup maybe just a little bit.
So here's what I was thinking, Eric. If I could throw in there, if that's okay, this is what I was wondering, and tell me if either of y'all agree or disagree with this. I think Nathan Eovaldi is the more for sure hand, and I think if you're going against Framber Valdez, you would rather have Eovaldi go against a rookie and Luis Garcia, who's less experienced, rather than if you throw Eovaldi against the ace Framber. Because Lance isn't in there, and you lose that game, and then you have to come back with the Chris Sale. It's a much weaker punch that you have to throw in game 2. So you throw Chris Sale in game 1. You hope that you get, to use a term I heard recently, found money. You hope that you get something that you didn't expect out of Sale. And then you have game 2 where you have Luis Garcia versus Eovaldi, and Eovaldi being the more sure thing and maybe steal a game and split, because I think a 1-1 split would be ideal for Boston. I don't know that they could win both games here in Houston. I think it would be next to impossible. But that was, I thought my understanding was, okay, don't go Eovaldi game 1, go game 2. Their ace against your best pitcher would cancel out their best pitcher if Framber is on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you certainly do not want to go down 2-0 to the Astros coming back home to Fenway. And when you have Chris Sale in there, if you only get an inning or 2 out of him and you waste most of your bullpen, or you waste a lot of your pitchers you don't want to waste, and then you go to Eovaldi in game 2 and you're like, well, we should have just used him in game 1. And then it just kind of jumbles everything up, because you want, like you said, you want that sure thing, or that more sure thing. There's never a sure thing in baseball, but being able to have Eovaldi in a game 2, which could be a crucial game 2, certainly will benefit the Red Sox more so than having him pitch in game 1.
Yeah, I think also getting that game 1 victory is always big for whatever team gets it in the series, because you're already up 1-0. But the last time the Astros faced Chris Sale in a regular season game, you want to hear who's in the lineup, Brett? It was George Springer, Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, Yuli Gurriel, Aledmys Diaz, Robinson Chirinos, Josh Reddick, Tyler White, and Jake Marisnick. So It's been a while. It's been
Tyler White, Jake Marisnick, and Josh Reddick is actually throwing out the first pitch of the game in game 1, and there are going to be a lot of woos. That's going to get that crowd fired up.
Yes. So that the Astros won that game 4-3. That was back in on May 24th of 2019. So wow. I know Chris Sale has been out pretty much for 2 seasons. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren.
Yep, about 2 years.
Yes. So this is from what I understand, he's pitched pretty well. I know he struggled towards the end, but this will be definitely a reminder of what the epic battles we've seen in the past in the ALCS and ALDS we've had before. So it kind of reminds me of what we've seen with David Price. And before, you mentioned him earlier, where he can be a starter. He can also be a reliever. So I'm just curious how deep that Chris Sale can go into this game. So we'll have to see what that situation, but we don't really know what's going on with Lance McCullers. I know John Heyman came out today and was throwing a lot of just kind of words out there, and just we had to read between the lines. And he's basically trying to say, "Hey, he's not going to pitch the rest of the year" or something. But it just sounds like he's out for the ALCS, like Brett said, and he may return for the World Series if the Astros get to that point. But that is a big loss for the Astros, and you know what? It's kind of like you don't have the right. Built bar for your like you have this whole rotation of built bars, and you just don't have that one piece you need.
Well, here's the thing. I really wish a Built Bar could fix it, because if I could go hand Lance a Built Bar, I would drive to his house right now, give him a Built Bar, heal up, go play a game. But it is an amazing bar. Let me tell you, all of the protein bars are horrible. They're chalky. They got way too many calories. I mean, they totally blow up your diet if you eat them. These are 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, only 45 grams of sugar, 45 grams of net carbs, amazing flavors, all tasty and all healthy. They got coconut, mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel. The sky's the limit. They got grasshopper cookie. It's their take of the Thin Mints that the Girl Scouts sell. And they have raspberry, whatever your heart desires. Grab a protein bar. It's the official protein bar of the USA track and field team. Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 50% off your first order. That's built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15. Go to built.com. It's the best bar in the biz.
All right, and make sure that you make the Locked On Astros podcast and the Locked On Red Sox podcast your first listen every day, whether it's the audio version or with the Locked On Astros, the YouTube version. Just make sure every morning, especially after every game, we're going to talk about every game, and we'll try to do some pregame stuff, kind of like what we're doing right now, Lauren. But just make sure you make us your first listen. So the reason I was bringing up Lance McCullers is that's a big hit for the Astros. And if Chris Sale's not on top of his game, Lauren, do you see this being a big offensive series?
I do. I very much do. And I think you look at this Astros lineup, and they're just 1 through 9. They're so dangerous. I'm going through, and I was like, how is Jose Altuve like the 5th best hitter on this lineup? Like, this is just insane. They're so deep. They're so complete. But losing Lance McCullers is definitely a big blow to the Astros. Even though he didn't pitch well against the Red Sox throughout his career, that's still a veteran arm in your bullpen or in your rotation that you all of a sudden do not have potentially for the entire series. So that's really, really big. But I think the offense really needs to explode. The Red Sox need to continue their big at-bats here, and so do the Astros, because I think it's going to be offense that wins this series.
No, yeah, definitely. And I think the real linchpin in all these operations is not necessarily, I think starting pitching favors the Astros a little bit in that they've had more consistent success with their starters. But I think for both clubs, it is the relief pitching. And if I've observed your team from afar correctly, at times, and when y'all were hot, your relief pitching was doing the job. And then when y'all were y'all just took this like San Diego Padres-esque nosedive. And I really thought y'all weren't going to make the playoffs. I thought y'all were going to do a big Padres move and not make it. And I'm like, no, Boston, we need Boston and Toronto to be in the wild card or whatever to keep the Yankees out, because we knew the Rays were going to keep pace. And it seemed like y'all's relief pitching was one of the things that was really kind of faltering. I think our bullpens are going to be key to this as well, because if the starters can hold the offense, but then the offenses start hitting innings 4 through 7 because the relief pitchers can't hold it down, you're right. It could be a shootout, and these could be late inning shootouts, 7th, 8th, 9th inning. You guys just did for the second time what's only been done twice by y'all in 2 walk-offs in 2 straight games. And the last time y'all did it was when y'all won the World Series. So we're hoping that magic pixie dust that y'all had, we hope that you left it somewhere in the airport and they didn't check it in their bags.
Yeah, it's this relief pitching. It worked so well for the Red Sox in the beginning of the season. Like you said, faltered. We don't really know what happened there. Everyone just kind of fell apart, especially Matt Barnes and Garrett Whitlock, who looked so strong. And now most of them look pretty good now, save for Matt Barnes. But you have these pitchers, you have everyone in the bullpen. You have Nick Pivetta out of the bullpen who could give you 4 innings. If you put Erod out in the bullpen, if you're feeling frisky, you can put a lot of good pitchers in that bullpen to save these games. But then it goes back to, are they going to be the faltering bullpen toward the end of the season, or are they going to be the first half bullpen that was so dominant? I don't know if Matt Barnes is ever going to get another shot at seeing the mound in the ALCS unless it's like a 12-1 game. But it's really going to be relief pitching. It's going to be offense, and really kind of which lineup is going to be able to get to the pitcher first.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats from the postseason. The the bullpen has a 2-1 record with a 4.15 ERA. The Red Sox have a 3-0 record with a 3.0 ERA. What's crazy though is that the Red Sox bullpen has already thrown 30 innings. I guess because y'all had to face the Yankees as well, and then
Yes.
I think you had some extra inning games there too. So
Yeah.
and maybe some starter had to leave early, like Chris Sale and stuff like that. So they've already put a toll on the bullpen, so maybe the Astros can take advantage of that in a way. But if I went back and looked at the regular season stats, the Red Sox bullpen has always been kind of a little bit ahead of the Astros bullpen all year, but it's been close. The Red Sox bullpen had an ERA of 3.99. The Astros bullpen was 4.06. So as bad as as we've perceived the Astros bullpen, it was still eighth best in baseball. In terms of ERA, not in terms of other stuff, but just looking at ERA. So yeah, I think that will be a big key. The starters, how deep will they go in the game? We saw game 3 get away from the Astros. That's a game that who started that game, Brett? Do you remember? Somebody only lasted it was Luis Garcia, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, Luis Garcia, he only lasted 3 innings or 4 innings, or not even that, and he gave up 5 runs. And that's when that's the only game the Astros lost in ALDS, and then the bullpen just kind of faltered and fell apart. That's where you see the inflated ERA, but otherwise the bullpen did its job. So what else do you see as a big key to the matchup for the Red Sox?
Just carrying this momentum. I think that's going to be huge. I think that they need to not only get to the starters early and often, but continue. Like if they're up 5-1, 4-1, they cannot get comfortable, because we saw that with the Rays. The Rays came back, they would tie it, they'd make it really close. And it's this offense, they really need these big bats. I know JD Martinez, his ankle is not a 100%. I know Rafael Devers, his forearm is not 100%, but you need these big names to come up big and have these big series. You need the Kiki Hernandezes and the Hunter Renfroes and those kind of unsung heroes to continue to pick this team up when they're not 100%. And if they're going to fall behind, they fell behind the Rays a few times and I never felt they were out of it. But I feel like this Astros team is so stacked that if they let the Astros get ahead, even if it's by 2 or 3 runs, they're going to make it very difficult for the Red Sox to come back. So they need to keep this game within reach. They need to bury this defense early and often. They need to and not get comfortable, not get cocky. They, like the Rays, when they're eating the popcorn in the dugout and they're ordering the champagne at Fenway Park, like none of that kind of attitude. And I don't think the Red Sox will, but I do know that, it's a huge series. The trip to the World Series is on the line. And if you get ahead 4-0, you're going to feel good about yourself. And it's only one game out of what could be 7-game series. So keep those heads on straight, get those bats swinging, and get to those pitchers.
So, I was looking at the stats, y'all's home and away splits. And what's interesting is y'all's home ERA is higher than your away ERA. And the Astros have hit Boston really well at Fenway. We've got some key home runs, some key moments that Boston fans would rather not talk about, like Bregman hitting a home run. Altuve loves hitting it over the monster. I mean, we've got pool hitters. We've got now Jordan and Kyle Tucker. We have just got an onslaught of pitchers that I think both of our ballparks, if our pitchers can't locate those fastballs and can't miss those bats, very vulnerable for the long ball, like we're talking about, the reason why it's a shootout. It's not a cavernous field like Great American Ballpark or somewhere like that. And so it really does come down to the moment, because the history with the Astros and the Red Sox, and I think with our lineup, seems to favor us, but it is baseball and it is a different day every single day. And it's like the guys like Kiki Hernandez. It's like the guys like Chas McCormick and Jake Myers, and the guys that aren't the big headliners going out there and putting the team on their back. We've got Correa. You guys got Devers. We've got big names. But I thought that was interesting that y'all's ERA was higher at home than it was on the road.
Yeah, they've seemed to struggle at Fenway Park. I don't know what it is, but if the Red Sox can go in and steal, I think 2 games it's a lot to ask, but if you can get in there and into Minute Maid and split the series, you're giving yourself a better chance to not give up losses at home. And the last thing they want to do is give up several runs at Fenway Park already down in a series.
Yeah, and that's what the Astros are trying to prevent. Like what would happen in the 2017 was it 2017 that the Astros won the first 2 games against the Yankees, then went to New York and lost all 3. Then
Yeah.
yeah. So what would happen if the Astros didn't win those first 2 games? So that's why the Astros are definitely going to try to win every home game, because you never know what can happen there. So speaking of, you were talking about Carlos Correa. Did you know that Carlos Correa is like what tied for 6th with the most playoff RBIs with 54 in his career,
Yeah.
and he's still young. This is a kid. That's what we don't understand with this Astros team. We are witnessing something. I know a lot of people will throw shade at us and say, "Well, yeah, there's a reason why you've been in playoffs this much." But Carlos Correa has been in this winning atmosphere for a long time. So he's tied with Albert Pujols with 54, and right behind your boy David Price with 61. So the reason why I bring this up is, which Astros hitter do you fear the most in the lineup? I know you mentioned Altuve earlier, but which one do you fear the most?
I said earlier that this lineup 1 through 9 is just completely stacked, but I think it's the Alex Bregmans and the Jose Altuves that really, when I sit here, I'm like, I do not want to face these people. Like, they are always, especially at Fenway, like they love hitting at Fenway, and there's people will complain about Fenway Park, they'll complain about the monster, but if Jose Altuve, who's like 5'5", can just hit moonshots over the monster, then I think Aaron Judge should be able to too. And Yankees fans should not be able to complain about the green monster when they have the short porch, but that's another topic for another day. But I think it's those two right there. They have playoff experience. They have playoff experience against the Red Sox, and they have experience in the ALCS, obviously the World Series. And they're out for revenge too against the Red Sox. Everyone loves the Cinderella story except the team playing that Cinderella team. So why not end the Cinderella story?
Hey, Brett, what do you think BetOnline.ag is saying about who's going to win this series? I'm sure do you think it's even, or you think it's leaning towards the Astros? Or tell us a little bit about BetOnline.ag.
So we're back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back for another football season. And we're talking about football, which means New England Patriots and Houston Texans, the top of the NFL. I'm just kidding. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all pro and college football action this season. With the new and updated website interface, even more odds, props, contests, BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Don't forget to use our promo code locked on to receive your bonus. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of the amazing deals and offers they have. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. And while y'all are talking, I'm going to go look up those official betonline.ag odds and talk about it with y'all real quick. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, so with that being said, I know we talked to Gabrielle yesterday, and she gave us her predictions. What are your predictions of the series?
So my prediction is, I think it's going to be Astros in 6, as much as the homegrown Boston kid that kills me. But I do think the Astros will take it in 6 games. I think that it's going to be a hard fought series. I think it's going to go 1-for-1. And I do think there'll be a split in Houston. And then I think that the Astros will be able to put it away pretty handily. I think that the injuries will start to pile up for the Red Sox. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I was wrong about the Rays series. Anything can happen, but I just see this being an Astros Giants World Series.
Well, what you're saying is that they're going to they're going to win 2 games in Boston. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Yes, I am.
That's
unfortunately.
Right. So I know for the game on Friday, they have the odds where the Astros are minus 134 and the Red Sox are plus 124. So clearly, they believe that the odds, I believe, are in the Astros favor. And I know, yesterday I was going to go 4-2, but thank you, Gabrielle, for influencing me to go 4-1, Astros in 5. Now I know McCullers is out. And that was before I knew McCullers was not going to be pitching. And again, I'm not saying anything official has come out from the Astros, but all indications show that he is not going to be pitching in the ALCS. So I'm just getting in the mindset as if he's not going to be there. We've got other starters.
They did an MRI on him, and they're waiting on a second opinion on him, and they have to make a decision by 10 o'clock, 10 a.m.
Right.
tomorrow.
I'm just totally prepared for him not to be in there in the ALCS because they did announce Framber and Garcia, but I think the Astros can get it done in 5. If they don't, they get it done in 6 without a doubt. I do not see this going 7 games. If they do, it will be a crazy, amazing atmosphere. It will be something that I don't know that I can handle at 46, but that's all good. It's baseball, and it's still the best game on the planet.
Yeah, I see it going in. I think 6 as well. I think it's going to be 4-2. I think that's what I said yesterday. But I think I do think that the Astros are going to get the first 2 games. I think the Red Sox may win 2 of the games in Boston, and then the Astros are going to win 1 of the games and then win the game 6 at home. And so, but I think it all depends on the matchups. And with that being said, I know we talked about the game 1 and 2 matchups. Who do you see in the rotation beyond that? I know it's kind of still up in the air for the Astros. I think Jose Urquidy could be somebody who gets a start for the Astros. And beyond that, I think they said they don't really know. Maybe Jake Odorizzi could get a start. Maybe Christian Javier could get a start, but there's not really any firm ideas. So who's your 3rd and 4th starter for the Red Sox?
So I guess, there's so much up in the air, but let's just say they get through games 1 and 2 kind of unscathed. I would go Erod for game 3. And then if it's do or die, I don't think they'll pitch Sale or Evaldi on short rest. But I would go with Nick Pivetta and then kind of have Tanner Houck in the bullpen ready to come in if Nick Pivetta is struggling with the 3rd or 4th inning, kind of like an opener role. But I think in my mind, Erod's a lock for game 3 and then Pivetta asterisk game 4.
Yeah, I think, Eric, I think for the Astros, I think they go Urquidy game 3 almost definitely. And then I think game 4 is you're going to have a mixture of Javier, Greinke, and Odorizzi, one of those 3, either a combination of those 3 or 2 of those 3, piggybacking. But I think if you start Odorizzi, then throw in Javier and then bring in Greinke, or you start Greinke, you flip those and then have Javier in between him and Odorizzi, I think that would be a genius move. And then you go game 5, you go back to Framber Valdez if he's ready to roll,
Yeah, Greinke has some good success against the Red Sox, so I wouldn't put it past Dusty Baker to start him, have him only go 2/3 innings, 2 to 3 innings because he's not stretched out. And Baker even said that today. He said he's not stretched out. He can't be a starter. He can maybe go in as a Tampa Bay Ray type opener type situation, but you're going to have to rely a lot on your bullpen in that game. And so that's going to depend on who's going to be on the roster. But think about it this way. You're going to have 2 extra pitchers who weren't on the ALDS roster. That's probably going to be Blake Taylor and then Jake Odorizzi.
Do you think they'll put Pete Solomon on there?
They could. I could see them doing that just to have another arm who can go 4 or 5 innings.
Yeah, that's. I was really thinking Pete Solomon before I was thinking Blake Taylor. But and that's the thing, Lauren, is the Astros have had these guys come up from AAA, from Sugarland, and literally people keep talking about how he had one of the worst minor league systems in the world. But we have all these young stars coming up, making contributions and doing big things. And we got guys waiting in the wings that are chomping up the bit to get out here. So, again, I think this is going to be a fun series. I really do. I hope you guys have some victories, but not the ultimate victory. How's that?
That's fair because I hope the same for you as well. I think it's going to be very competitive. I'll be very surprised if there's a sweep either way. I don't see a sweep happening here. Just the competitive nature of both of these teams and Dusty Baker and Alex Cora just being brilliant baseball minds. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining, and I'm gonna miss you guys. I'm gonna miss being friends for the next week or so.
But going back to Blake Taylor, the Red Sox do have a lot of left-handed hitters. They have Alex Verdugo, Kyle
True.
Schwarber, Danny Santana. I don't know how much he plays, but he's a switch hitter. Then you have Rafael Devers is a left-handed hitter, and Travis Shaw. I don't know how much he plays, but he's left-handed. So they couldn't need the extra lefty. But like you said, but would they put a rookie in that situation in the against the Red Sox? So I don't know. We'll see. I think only Dusty Baker knows that. So is there, now that I kind of look at the lineup, is there one hitter that the Astros fans should be kind of shaking in their boots about?
I'd say Kiki Hernandez. He is so incredibly hot this postseason. He's made Red Sox postseason history. He's getting the big hits. He's getting the timely hits. And he has a ton of, he was with the Dodgers, so he knows what it's like to play in these big games and under the brightest lights and be under the biggest pressure. So I'd really watch out for him. I think he's just riding this hot streak right now, and I don't see him cooling down anytime soon.
Did he never play? Oh, no, never mind. He played with the Astros. He just never played in the postseason. I'm just looking at postseason right here. Never mind.
But he had his first major league home run was with the Astros at Minute Maid Park. He was wearing number 6 that Jake Myers wears. I thought that was interesting. But Kike Hernandez is one of those players that he's like your David Eckstein type players. He's like your maybe not Jed Lowry because he doesn't really have the postseason experience, but guys like that are I call your minor major stars, like your guys that they're not the shoe endorse guys, but they're the guys that when you see them walking down the street, they're having a hamburger with the friend, with the fans, and they're just kind of a normal, average, everyday guy. But Kike had a lot of swagger in LA, and it seems like he's kept it up. You guys have former Astro JD Martinez, who I think his whole career has been out to prove the Astros wrong. And I know he's kind of on a bum ankle. Is JD Martinez 100%? I want to ask you that before we go.
He's not 100%, but he's as close that he's going to get. And like you said, he was released by the Astros all those years ago now, it seems like. And he's on, if there's any time for him to get some revenge, it's in the ALCS.
Yeah. So, guys, it was great to have you on, Lauren. Hopefully we were able to preview the series good enough. And thank you for making Locked On Astros and Locked On Red Sox your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to Locked On MLB podcast with Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call him Sully. He brings you his unique perspective of on the major league past and present. It's free and available on all platforms. And maybe we can check in after the series and where we can go, and all that. But hopefully it's going to be a great series. And I just hope Chris Sale is not on his game today because he can be dominant, but he can also, I think Alex Bregman can make him his daddy. So we'll talk about this and more on the next Locked On Astros podcast. Thank you once again, Lauren, for joining, and we will see you tomorrow after game 1 of the ALCS.